It's time for our second semifinal here at the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series, live from Montreal, Canada, as there are only 3 players left. We all know who number 1 is. Cyril awaits his next victim, or perhaps a hero to stand against the Night King. This is the World Championship Series. I'm your host, Nathanius, joined on the desk by Zombie Grub and Rotter. Damn, isn't he good looking? Kevin, talk to me about how your Day 3 experience has been here so far.
Awesome, Nate. Awesome. Love hanging out with the fans, obviously. They've been absolutely fantastic. Love hearing the cheers when we're casting. But the games, I think, have been really good. I've been loving the storylines. And obviously that the quarterfinal with time against Hero Marine. 5 minutes after it, I was still in disbelief. I'm like, oh my goodness, I was so incredibly wrong here. 3-0, it was a storm that started 3 minutes into game 1 and ended when the best of 5 was over. So now I've been having an awesome day.
Everything has been fantastic. It's either been a complete shock or it's been back and forth and amazing and super, super hype. So this is like, I don't know, I don't want to go as far as say it's the best WCS ever, but
they get angry when you do that.
I mean, I'm here, so in my opinion, it's the best WCS
They get real mad when you say that, but it has been a tremendous journey so far, ladies and gentlemen. As we get into our second semifinal, let's take a look at the road the players traveled to get here.
The Liberators are the first thing targeted. Interference Matrix, I don't know if they're intentionally on the Medivacs, but it doesn't really matter as that is too much of an army. GG time!
就是感觉很激动嘛，然后还是不能够相信我这个4强，因为其实我觉得我的自己实力并没有到4强的水平。It feels amazing, and it's my first time in the semifinals. Last time it was round of 8, and I got Cyril, so I just wanted to see how far I would go without playing against Cyril.
More links driven on in. This is match point. One of these players is going to be moving on, and Utherma losing his last Marines. It's going to be settled. Reynor.
This is the World Championship Series. An astounding run. Reynor comes in as a player that was not eligible to play in WCS because he was too young. And I feel he's taken the StarCraft scene by storm in 2018, Zombie Grub.
Wouldn't it be amazing if you won enough, qualified for BlizzCon off the back of 2 WCSs? He couldn't actually attend the other 2. That would be quite amazing.
His run in Valencia was great. I love the little clip that we got there as well. He said, I made it to the quarterfinals, but I got Cyril. So now I want to see how far I could go without getting Cyril.
And let's see now, as we're ready to introduce our players for that semifinal, we have the wonderful voice of WCS herself, Smix.
Thank you very much, Nathanius. Reynor Shine. It's time to introduce the players for our second semifinal match of the day. It's Reynor and time.
The handshake of destiny as 2 men face off to see who will go up against Cyril. Waiting in the grand finals, time has been our sleeper hit of this tournament. Not a player we were talking about when we looked at that round of 16 or group stage 3. And Reynor, well, we didn't think he would get quite this far, but the hype machine has been rolling.
I absolutely believe that Reynor could get this far because he really has shown us enough, in my opinion, to convince us of that. But time semifinals, no, I did not see that coming at all. Still remember Austin, I was full of hopes and dreams. I'm like, guys, time is really good. He's different than the other Chinese players. He's really like legit all across the board. Had a disappointing showing. I heard he didn't practice a lot. So when going into this tournament, no, he was not one of the players that I looked at all. And now he's in the semifinals. But Nate, real quick, I do want to say that I'm kind of worried for Time here, and I was worried against Hero Marine too, and I was very wrong. But I think stylistically, this is a very bad matchup for Time. I think Time is hyper-aggressive, is best when he can just dictate the pace of the game. Fighting happens on opponent's side of the map, and he can just focus on his harassment. But Reynor will never let that happen. Reynor is also very aggressive, loves to go for run-bys, counterattacks, and that's what I'm very worried about here for Time.
You agree, Zombie Grub?
I do, yeah. I thought Uthermal did a very good job against the run-bys, and yet he was still, he still lost, and I'm worried that Time will not have nearly as effective a defense against the run-bys.
All right, let's see if he can get that aggression going as we kick off our second semifinal. It's time for Reynor versus Time.
Thank you so much, Nate. My name is Fear Dragon. I am joined by Pig here as we move into our second semifinals match. Only one of these two players are going to have their chance at BlizzCon kept alive to move into the grand finals. Let's find out which one of the two it will be. We're going to be starting down here, the bottom right-hand corner of the map, top of the blue Terran player. He is the Chinese Time.
We're going to be saying that word a lot this series. And up here in the top left-hand side, he has made such a name for himself. Blitzing his way onto the scene this year, coming of age, and finally smashing his way through the WCS circuit. In the top left, in the red, representing Exceed Esports, it is Reynor!
This kid, this young lad, at such a young age, 16 years old, has such a bright career ahead of him, and he's already poised to be a player that can move on to the finals, a player that a lot of people are hyping up, someone that can maybe take down Cyril, who's considered by some to be the best player in the world right now. I mean, it's absurd, the level of skill this kid has risen to.
You know, it was 2 years ago, back in Valencia 2016, when he actually made a surprise top 8 as a young 14-year-old. That was when all the eyes in the world were drawn to him for the first time. There was a lot of hype. He ended up getting put down there by Snoot, but it was the first show of greatness, and we knew at that point there was going to be a big, bright future ahead of him. He's showing that here today, of course, in his first semi-final in the WCS circuit, and he's going to be opening up with his spawning pool first. 6 Zergling opening once again. Now this time around, it is versus a Barracks Gas. There's going to be that Marine following up the Reaper. And that Reaper actually on line to see the Zerglings, but the Overlord spots it. They change paths, and they are going to wait for that Reaper to cross them, and they're going to run in and try and slow down that command center.
Yeah, Time a lot more aggressive in comparison to Thermal with that Reaper, is willing to move straight across the map with it without any fear. He has that one Marine, but that one Marine was looking to try and get a snipe off on the Overlord. It's going to be in some trouble. 2 Zerglings segment off to take care of the SCV building command center. The rest of the Lings going after those SCVs and trying to get some damage on the Marine, but not going to be able to make it work.
2 red hit point SCVs. Reynor really wanted the Zergling kill because he committed to a full 8 Lings, but Time's micro is insane. Oh, wow. The units lost is incredible there. 6 Lings for just a little bit of mining time. Didn't even barely slow the command center down. That is an insane hold by Time.
A perfect hold from Time. Doesn't lose anything there. And now you can move into that Reactor Hellion, get out some of those Hellions to get some map control. The Reaper on the other side of the map, gonna be doing some annoying little dancing, looking for the drone over by the third, doesn't spot a third base, sees, okay, you took the other third base. He might end up realizing this a little bit later on as he maneuvers himself around the map, but Time looking to be in a good start so far.
Yeah, definitely a nice way to start off the series for Time, but losing those Lings, you never really get like a ton of SCV kills. Forcing a mining time and maybe getting 1 or 2 SCVs is what Reynor was looking for. The interesting thing here is, of course, it's Parasite. We haven't seen this map a lot because it keeps getting vetoed by Terran players. However, Time actually opted to veto Lost and Found, and instead is happy to play this very, very large map. So that's an unorthodox veto there. Willing to play such a huge map. I'm very curious to see how Time tries to bridge the gap, because normally it's the fact that it just takes so long to get to the other side that gives Terran players a tough time.
And especially versus someone like Reynor, that is just one of those things that it's going to be especially hard versus him and his counter-attacking, his love for Zerglings.
Ooh, he actually faked Stim by starting up the concussive shell Marauder upgrade, made it look like he was going into a bio transition, immediately canceled it when that Overlord went down and started up 2 Cyclones. Time, I don't know if he's going to go into mech behind it, but he is definitely committing to a very strong frontal pressure with Hellion Cyclones, that Reaper, and there's going to be a Liberator to hit the back at the same time. The Zergling gets in, sees the command center, but does not see the tech. Time doing a very good job of hiding the information. And it's only Zerglings and Evolution Chambers up for Reynor. Reynor is not going to have Roaches out to deal with this. Banelings can deal with it okay, but you'd always rather have a bunch of Roaches and Ravagers if your opponent commits to a lot of Cyclones.
Yeah, does end up researching Stim regardless, just a little bit later on, adding on a couple more of these barracks. So he is still going to go into the bioplay, it looks like, with the Lings also poking in at the front. spotting out and seeing, okay, you still got your third base over there, but where are your units? And Reynor is really insistent on trying to push on forward, but he still sees just 3 Marines.
And finally, Time is going to show his hand. There's no armory, so these cannot become Hellbats. That's still a very scary push. Those Cyclones, more than a match for those Queens. There's a few Banelings on the defense, a lot more Lings immediately starting up. Drones are exposed here. The Viking landed, doing a good job of tanking. Those Cyclones, of course, absorbing a lot of Baneling hits, barely even caring about it.
Yeah, Cyclones have absorbed pretty much every single one of the Baneling hits, and now that all of them are gone, the Hellions can start roasting and toasting most of these Lings. The Queens getting very aggressive. The creep spread has been beneficial there for Reynor, able to chase pretty far.
Good hold by Reynor, but Time does keep those units alive, keeps some threat out on the map. That's important. It means there's no Zergling counterattack potential. The third command center is finishing up behind this, and of course going into the bio transition, albeit a little bit delayed, but the double upgrades are on the way. The third command center will be able to float over in the near future, so it's just going to be Marine tank as the follow-up up against the Zergling Baneling. Oh, the depot goes down at the worst possible time.
A ton of these Marines going to get surrounded by these Speedlings, and they're getting taken out. More Marines coming in from the main base. Reynor is going to try and find any SCVs he can, but actually not really finding nearly as many as I thought he would there.
Nice trade on the Marines, though, and this is Reynor. He's got to be so frustrating to play against. All of the players have been saying they hate playing against Reynor. He always finds a way into your mineral line, even when you're expecting it. Their Zerglings are just constantly poking and prodding, and behind it, Reynor does not miss a beat. His upgrades are finishing up. He's massing more Ling Bane, going up to 5 hatcheries, 4 bases, 2 starts immediately, and Reynor continuing to push that upgrade advantage.
Yeah, that 2-2 going to be very, very important for Reynor to try and maintain, because that would be a massive lead if he can keep it up. But okay, third base has been established here for Time. He's able to settle this in, but this is where we start to get to that point in the game once again, Pig, where Time is getting into the mid game, is getting into that stage of the game where he's going to have a very long journey across the map, and Reynor has so many more opportunities for those run-bys.
That's a lot of units pushing, though. Marines, tanks, Cyclones, 1-1 finishing up here. Stim is done. Zergling's going to come in on the counter. They're going to find a siege tank in the open. That mineral line is bare wide open at this point. The fourth base looks like it will go down, but if Reynor can do enough damage on the other side of the map, he'll be happy to give that up. Thinks about trying to save it, changes his mind, but 20 workers going down on the Terran side of the map.
Time needs to equalize the damage. Baneling speed is not finished up, but a lot of Banelings are there, and there's some decent creep spread in front of that natural expansion. So Time may not have time on his side over here if he wants to get that damage done.
The Ling flank on the right-hand side, and Reynor pulls the trigger. He sees the tank unsieged, and that's just too much Ling Bane. Time gonna have to pick up and evacuate, and at the end of that, both players licking their wounds, trying to recover. Reynor knocked back to 3 hatches, forced to expand down the left-hand side of the map. He's still got this frustrating drop of Marines to deal with. Comes in, snipes a tumor, and then does lift that away. But Time lost all the workers on his third base, so both players are still very even in that economy.
Time not paying attention for a split second, ends up losing a lot of those Marines to the Banelings, but those were a lot of Banelings in exchange for just 6 or 7 Marines, so he ends up eventually picking up and retreating out of there. Reynor also expanding along the left-hand side is really interesting, because that is where a majority of his creep spread is.
Yeah, that creep, of course, vital to the mid-game in Zerg versus Terran. Where you're going to be able to take the good fights is always on the creep, and the Terran wants to create pathways to reach your base. They want to get within striking distance without stepping on the creep, so notice these drops. These aren't really frontal pushes. These just want to clear up the creep, slow it down. But, oh, Banelings get about 7 of those Marines, and he missed the active tumor just barely, which is such a shame. His drop's not really finding much purchase, and oh no!
My God.
2 siege tanks scored in the open!
And these Lings are going to continue to get some more damage on as they try and run into that mineral line, trying to go after just a few of these SCVs, or even just trying to buy a little bit of time as he now moves in with the rest of the Lings, potentially over the third, but no, he's going to end up backing out. Reynor has found the damage, and he's pretty happy with it.
Who would have ever thought such a young, innocent face would be associated with these Terran nightmares? Every time the depot is down in the wall, units are getting surrounded, they're getting sniped. Time, though, is kept to up the worker count at 64. The problem, of course, for Time is that the tank count has been reset. He's already only playing a very delayed second factory style. And right now, it's an almost pure Marine army, which does not hold up well against this. There's only 2 siege tanks on the map right now.
He needs to clean up that creep spread as well, but he really needs to be able to push in sooner rather than later, because the longer he waits, the more likely something like this is going to happen. The Ling surrounding the Marines is forced to pick up, but he loses the tanks again.
A full medevac of Marines went down there as well. Great focus fire by Reynor on that exposed medevac, and the upgrades are behind for Time. 2-2 is slowly catching up. He's building a 4th command center. Time is realizing he has to just hang on for the long haul. He's not going to be able to finish this off with a 3-base push. He's got to go up that tech tree to more tanks, more liberators, and eventually more ghosts.
Hive tech on the way for Reynor, and he's doing a great job pushing back attack after attack here from Time. The drops not able to make the damage happen that he wants. A handful more Marines end up falling to another Baneling, and Reynor is still poised for another Ling run-by attempt the second that he sees an opportunity.
The action is kept this game rather fast-paced. Reynor not with such a large economy as we've seen in some of his other series. Often he loves going up to the 85, 86, 87 worker count. He's only at 73 this game, so a few bad engagements and things can definitely turn around. But at this moment, Reynor is asserting huge map control. The creep spreading across on all sides, and he's setting up these multiple angles that he likes to strike from. Lingbane setting up on the right-hand side, his main army defending the left, and that Hive tech getting closer and closer to being ready.
Okay, there's the 4th base being established there for Time. It's going to spread him out a little more. The Banelings come rolling on in to bust down the supply depot while taking care of the sensor tower as well. I do like that. Going to make his Ling run-bys even more effective. Finds the 4th base. It's not morphed into anything just yet. A lot of Hydras here, but it seems like Reynor does not want to take that fight.
Yeah, not a lot of Banelings on the left, so you got to be careful.
Whoa.
But Time has overstepped. Those Marines distracted on the right-hand side.
Wow.
And there we go. He's going to get on top of the siege tanks as well. Reynor finds the chink in the Terran player's armor, and that is going to be it. The entire left-hand side of the Terran defense collapses. The command center goes down, and at the same time, Reynor dives in the right-hand side.
Oh my God, this kid is everywhere right now. He's handling the drops. He's handling the Liberator harassment. He handles his opponent's 3rd base and the main force all at the exact same time. And he gets a massive lead in this game, even as Adrenal Glands on the way, has +3 armor on the way, keeping up with his macro, Ultraless Cavern. He's got everything.
You can see the focus on his face. This is him in his element. When Reynor gets that creep out, when he's able to attack on all sides, he is loving it. And you can see him once again opportunistically pouncing on the Terran army before it can siege up, crushing it. All of the tech units are taken down. And at the same time, he's rallying units in on the right-hand side. He wants to finish this game here and now. Reynor senses opportunity, and he is quick to strike.
There is just not enough left here for Time. GG gets called. Reynor is going to take the first game in this best of 5. Well done by Reynor thus far. In an intense, like you said, action-packed macro game. Just no time for breathing room. And Reynor able to showcase his skill.
Definitely that counterattack into the 3rd base, taking out the siege tank, clearing out the mineral line, and calmly giving up the 4th hatchery. Fantastic call by Reynor, and he does take his map choice. This was his map choice, Parasite. So it is the biggest map that they're going to be playing on, and it's definitely the one which was most favored in Reynor's direction for the way these 2 player styles match up. Time is, of course, going to be going to map number 2 on Fracture, which we've seen Reynor struggle with in the previous series. It's a tough match for Zerg. It's going to change up the dynamic a little bit, so I don't think Time's too thrown off after that result. Not too unexpected there, but definitely some very, very commanding play from Reynor.
Yeah, it's kind of bound to happen on a map like that, but Fracture, like you said, going to be a bit of an interesting choice there for Time, as it is a much smaller map. You're kind of referring to how Reynor's first series went versus Euthermal, and how that kind of started spiraling a little bit more in Euthermal's favor.
It's just so hard to flank the army on that map, isn't it? When we see Reynor here, he smoothly swaps those Ling counterattacks. They're counterattacking, they're killing workers, and then they get back and they join up in time to flank the army. And this seems to be the pattern, which is really the secret to Zerg's success with this style. On a small map like this, you don't really have time to counterattack. The siege tanks are already in range of your third or fourth base, and that can cause you a lot of problems. So definitely Fracture, a more aggressive map on both sides. There's a higher chance of a Ravager rush coming out. There's a higher chance of some sort of early Hellbat push. There's a lot of different aggressive tactics that can come out. I would not be surprised if we even see something crazy like a one-base Ravager out of Reynor.
So interesting, too, because Reynor has not really been going for a lot of that stuff thus far, but he's absolutely someone who is fully capable of doing a lot of that stuff. And I really wonder if we just didn't see it versus Euthermal as a stylistic preference. But let's find out what these two players are going to be throwing at each other on Fracture as we jump into the game and introduce the players. We are going to be starting down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. Top of the blue, Terran player down 0-1, but not out of the series by any means whatsoever. He is Time.
Getting a lot of fans with his run so far this tournament. But the man who's been building up momentum all game, all year long, I should say, up here in the top left-hand side, representing Exceed Esports and hailing from Italy, give it up for Reynor.
Been building that hype for quite a bit of time. And you say all year long, it's kind of funny because he only turned 16 halfway through the year, but there was one event that I'm gonna credit you to and say that at the beginning of the year, there was Nation Wars. One of the few events Reynor could participate in, kind of that ace player for his country. And we ended up seeing him actually face off versus Time. Took 2 maps off of him. Time was able to take a single final map off of Reynor. But it still definitely went very much in Reynor's favor.
Yeah, Reynor carried Italy a long way in that tournament. He played very, very well there, and he's just been going from strength to strength. His time in Korea seems to have benefited him greatly with that amazing GSL run recently, and he's bringing it over here. He's showing he's got some consistency. He's not just a flash in the pan. It's not just one good run and then we never hear from him again. Reynor is just building up that experience, that momentum, and we're already starting to see it in his strategic diversity. He's changing up his builds every matchup, every game. He's a very unpredictable player to face off against.
And I think it's also so difficult to play versus a player of his style, because one of the things that doesn't get talked about that much is when you're dealing with someone that's constantly doing Ling run-bys and everything, it's not just that you're taking damage, it's the fact that your momentum, your kind of thought process is suddenly broken up because it's always constant panic mode of, ah, God, my supply depot was lowered. Oh man, the Ling's got into my third again. I need to go into panic mode. All this unplanned thinking of how to deal with it really does put a lot of strain on you.
Absolutely. You know, mental flexibility, but also just mental strength and your ability to kind of cope with all of these things that are thrown your way in a StarCraft game without losing your cool is very important. And this Reaper micro, very nice. 2 Zergling kills there. Great way to start things off for Time. Time has not actually spotted the other hatchery. Now, this is an interesting hatchery location because it does give you a much more wide open area in front of it. There's less cliffs where people can set up siege tanks on. However, it's a little bit closer to the Terran player.
In a map like Fracture, where you're already a stone's throw away from your opponent, it really can get a bit weird depending on what Time decides to do. I actually really wonder if it's going to affect what Time decides to do, almost reactively seeing that.
Looks like we are seeing an early Widow Mine, and actually the barracks still on the reactor. The Overlord spots that and sneaks out of the base. Reynor getting some free scouting information. Of course, would love to spot the Widow Mine drop leaving the base as well. That's what's going to be probably coming across the map into a factory with a tech lab. So I would not be surprised to just see a 3rd command center and some siege tanks for safety behind this.
Okay, but we got a few Lings being made there for Reynor as well, so he's kind of getting to that position where he knows, okay, you got a handful of Marines, you got your Starport probably finished up around now, that Medevac's gonna be popping out, and I need to have some units prepared for this. So the Widow Mine loaded up with 4 Marines, can look to try and get some damage done, but Reynor seems like he's gonna have the tools he needs to try and deal with this. Losing an Overlord obviously sucks for Reynor, but it is also gonna give him some nice scouting information of what he's up against.
Is there anything defending the natural? Because a Zergling counterattack could actually do some damage. Time does get the wall up though, believe that is a solid wall. This Marine Widowmine drop coming on, just put on some light pressure. Tanks and Cloaked Banshees coming in behind this. And the Zerglings are going to come in.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of surface area on that command center, and it's going to take a lot of damage.
And there's not really a whole lot over here to defend. A handful of Marines come forward, but it's too late. It gets canceled, and now we end up seeing the Marines under fire. The Lynx are going to get taken care of, and at the same time, time is inside the natural expansion, but Reynor already has his Lynx prepared. His Queens are here. The third base may come under some more fire, but the damage has already been done at this point.
Yeah, that was very, very nice. Reynor canceling the third, but this drop is getting a lot of value as well. Even though Reynor's been splitting Lings against the Widow Mine, he's sniped down the mine, has taken out most of the Marines. You can see it reflected in the work account that Reynor is not quite as far ahead as he'd like to be. But that third command center snipe is just huge. It slows down Time's entire build with this. Remember, it's just this light medevac pressure followed up by the siege tanks and the Banshees. And those, whilst they can do some big damage, Reynor is very well prepared. So it's going to be a very static early mid-game, and that's going to give Reynor a lot of time to cover this map and creep.
Loses most of the Marines, that medevac, and the Banshee comes forward, but Queens are here with a Spore Crawler. Doesn't quite have the vision standing far enough to deal with the Banshee. Starts up his lair tech now, so he's going to eventually be able to get up an Overseer. But losing one of those gas geysers may be a bit annoying. Unburrows the Spore Crawler, reburrows it a little bit closer. And Time, is he going to find another sweet spot? Looks like he does. Transfuse is being thrown out on the Extractor. I don't know if it's going to survive in time, though.
Second Transfuse being baited out. That alone already is a nice little bit of harassment. Time being frustrating, annoying Reynor as much as he can, but it's not a lot of direct damage. Here comes a frontal push. A bunch of unupgraded Marines, a Banshee, and 2 siege tanks wanting to create some problems. Reynor not with a lot of Zerglings out. His Queens have used all their Transfuse. That Banshee in the main, forcing the workers off the mining. This is starting to deal a lot of damage to this hatchery.
He's cleaned up the creep chambers. They're going to start receding now as well. And at the same time, the hatchery losing a lot of hit points. And now Reynor realizes he needs it to jump on this army. Takes care of one of the siege tanks. Is on top of the second siege tank. The Marines have to pick up and evacuate. The Banshee may still be doing damage here at the third base. And the main base looks like it had to retreat out with very few hit points remaining.
That's some very unorthodox Terran aggression coming out and swapping back into Hellions behind this. This is the last thing you'd expect as Reynor. It's such an odd style to be playing against, but he does seem to be clued in to the fact that he's playing against a mech player. He's already going for the melee upgrades and the ranged upgrades, skipping out on the carapace, which is of course so important against Marines and Marauders. But here we go, the pressure is not done yet. More Hellions, more Banshees, and there's not a lot of Queens out right now to help defend this.
More factories also being thrown down behind us, but the lane counterattack
no time.
catches the Hellions, and it's also going to slow down some of those additional buildings at the front, potentially allowing more Lings in, but he goes to the third, picks off some of those SCVs, but at the same time, Reynor losing a lot back at home, losing some of these drones. They're getting roasted and toasted. 10 drones go down and still more falling.
Drones against Hellbats, never a good situation. Time finding some success here in the chaos. His quick SCV pull and Hellions microing at the home did manage to take down all of those Zerglings on the defense. He's got 3 bases up and solid. He's sniped Reynor's third, and Reynor now just has 1 new third base popping up in the corner of the map, isolated, but his economy has been shattered. Reynor getting the worst end of these trades on this tiny map.
Doesn't even care if the supply depot is down. Reynor still finds an opportunity to move in, kill off a few workers, force these Hellions back, and I wonder if seeing this many more Hellions being produced is enough of a reveal if Reynor is going to have a really good idea of exactly what he's up against now.
Yeah, it looks like he wants to play Roach Swarm Host against this, but he's got so little economy, and Reynor knows the aggression is not done. 3 Banshees going to be heading towards the main base. He's going into Roach's more Queens, but he's only got 48 workers. Fear Dragon, this has got to be the most efficient play a Zerg player's ever seen if Reynor wants to come out of this one alive.
Overseer is already here, and the Queens are ready to defend. He pushes back the Banshees very, very quickly, so that part is looking good. Roach is on the counter
and Lings have counterattacked the natural at the same time. Reynor using his multitasking to get back in this game. He is so far behind an army right now, and yet is somehow doing economic damage to the player with the far superior tech units. There's a double Thor drop ready though. There's a lot of Hellions. Those Banshees still standing strong. Reynor needs a bit more time to recover in this game.
Reynor, as soon as he lost that third base, his fourth base was actually getting pretty close to finishing up. So he's been able to transfer most of those workers down over there. He's been able to reestablish his third base at the same time. But you can see that the Terran player absolutely leading a little bit in that economy. So we'll see if these Banshees are going to be able to do some even more damage to Reynor as they move down to the bottom left.
Yeah, Reynor is getting out just Roaches and Ravagers right now, so these Banshees are always going to be a threat. They do manage to take out a couple of those spores and, of course, start to take out the hatchery. Going to put down a little bit of damage, but the Queens will respond. The creep spread's coming out, and once again, Reynor backstabs. Every single time he senses weakness, he pokes in. This time he sees the response is ready, and he does pull back out of that situation.
Queens pushing back those Banshees even further, but we see that the double Thor medevac drop going to the main base. No, you do not want to be dropping there, Time. Ends up having to back off, has those Thors in high impact payload mode, so he can take out one of these overlords, just find the damage he can, since there aren't really a lot of anti-air options there for Reynor.
Yeah, and that's going to be very powerful because the Banshees, of course, have forced the Queens to the bottom side of the map, so there's no mobile anti-air. Hoping to hit Thors and medevacs with corrosive bile is really just hoping your opponent switches their computer off, because, you know, a player at Times Caliber, there's no way he walks into those. And the advantage of this, if he can keep it out on the map, is he can spot the swarm host, potentially drop those Thors and force the Locusts to land on the ground. So the more presence he has with these Thors, the more they can help him out in the future stages of this map.
Yeah, starting to take a little bit of damage on those Thors, but doing a great job keeping them alive, dodging out of the corrosive biles, and just keeping the Roaches and Ravagers occupied. Remember, every single time that Reynor is super focused on these units with his defensive capabilities, he's not being on the offensive like he wants to be.
Random siege tanks rallying out to their death, a bit of sloppiness from Time, but the double Liberator harassment is doing some work, even microing those Liberators, one in the main at the same time as well. He's all over it. Fantastic play, but hey, Reynor not faltering at all. He's keeping up with it. Both Liberators go down. Only 9 worker losses, and Reynor has somehow managed to make it to maxed out supply. He's got a good swarm host count. He's got good upgrades, and he's got a lot of Roach Ravager. It's not the longest term army, but remember how hard the position was looking for the young Italian player earlier this game. He's managed to work his way back into a playable spot.
Banshees and the scan catching wind of how many Swarmos exactly there are. Time needs to make sure he's not caught out of position and make sure that he can keep alive all of those units against the massive Swarmos wave. The Swarmos, if they can get too close to one of these bases, Time could be in a lot of trouble, especially with the siege tanks. They do a lot of friendly fire damage versus the Locusts.
Yeah, the secret, of course, is the Hellbats. You can't let those Locusts land on the Hellbats. Notice they're being microed past. The Hellbats have got to defend those siege tanks. There we go. The Locust's going to land on some of the siege tanks in the rear. Only one siege tank going down. Good defense by Time. Fantastic defensive micro.
Really, really good defense from Time. The Liberator's also moving across the map saying, okay, if you're over here with most of your army, I know where you're probably not. There's a single Queen over here. Ooh, Liberator sieging up in range of the Spore Caller and the Queen. And at the same moment, we have Reynor moving over to this top right-hand base saying, okay, well, my army's a little more mobile than yours. I'll try and find some damage, but doesn't find that much.
Yeah, those Liberators did get cleaned up. Reynor's been fantastic on the defense, but he's opening up angles for these swarm hosts to do the damage. Some of them going to land, take out the turrets, the sensor tower, the siege tanks. A lot of damage going down, but it's time to push the Hellbats and tanks going forward, eating corrosive bile all over that army.
Most of the tanks have actually either died or taken a substantial amount of damage. More corrosive biles coming down on top of the remaining tank and the Hellbats. Reynor, he's going to have another wave of Locusts very soon, and even the Hellbat count has fallen so rapidly.
The Swarmo so powerful on this small map, able to get over to Time's side and put the pressure on, and then immediately fall back to safety. Time felt the pressure. He felt he needed to move into the center. But the corrosive bile from those Ravagers, their ability to do that fighting retreat is just so strong. Time took a disastrous trade there, and even though he's got the 4th base up, his army supply is now way down.
But for how long, Pig? How long does he have that 4th base up? A lot of Locusts going to be landing on that, going after, right-clicking on that planetary fortress, trying to cut down on the surround capabilities for the repair, and it is enough damage. The command center goes down.
And these Ravagers going to look for an opening. Anytime they can spam that corrosive bile down, that's great damage. Remember, these are cheap units Reynor's using. Anytime he can trade those out for these more valuable mech units, it's a good trade for the Zerg.
Every single time those corrosive biles come down, it's siege tanks, it's hellbats. These units are not made to move quickly out of the way of giant fireballs from the sky. Reynor is finding so many value trades with these units. We see a Thor drop, double Thor drop going off to the top side at the same time that Hellions try running around. He's going to be able to potentially snipe off this hatchery, and he does so. Hellions also getting a lot of drones roasted. Reynor falling down to 50 workers.
That is some very nice harassment. Those are the sort of moves you're going to need to do to get yourself back in this game time. And those Thors going to start to work on the drones in the main base at the same time. The Locust, though, on the other side of the map, being microed perfectly despite the harassment, launches them onto the siege tanks. Gets 3 or 4 tanks for a Locust wave. Very nicely done by Reynor, maintaining that efficiency under pressure.
Value trades once again, over and over and over again. Gets another couple of siege tanks. And continues to batter down Time, who just cannot get the mining bases, the economy he needs to contest Reynor, who's now sitting at roughly a 2K gas bank and nearly a 5K mineral bank.
Yeah, Reynor losing those workers is tough if this game goes for another 10 minutes, but I'm not sure it's going to go that long, Fear Dragon. Time has to eke this one out over the long term. He needs to keep the harassment up, but these Locusts are the problem. They're the ever-present threat. The Hellbats aren't able to stop these Locusts from doing damage. Even if it's just a sensor tower and a few Hellbats each wave, that's free damage for Reynor. He can keep launching those every 45 seconds.
And sniping off that sensor tower makes it even harder to catch the Roaches and Ravagers. What angle are they going to be poking in at next? Where does Time need to situate his Hellbats, his Thors, his siege tanks? We end up seeing Thor's getting very dangerously low on hit points, but Reynor is getting up. That Greater Spire behind this is about to finish up. He's got 3-3 upgrades on the way at long last. Swarmos off of cooldown. It's his game to lose right now.
Yeah, lots of Thors and Hellions in production right now, but they struggle to deal with the Ravagers. That's the problem. When you don't have any tanks left over, the Roaches and the Ravagers will reign supreme. And there we go, coming in, taking out these isolated tanks. Even if he just goes for a bunch of biles on the SCVs, that planetary is exposed. So many workers go down, and he can just withdraw. Once again, as we said, trading out cheap Roaches and Ravagers, sniping down the expensive sensor tower, the expensive siege tanks. Great trades for Reynor.
Reynor just continuing to remax on the Roaches. I guess they've been working pretty well for him. Now he's getting Burrow and Tunneling Claws. Okay. He's got such a Roach-heavy composition, it kind of makes a little bit of sense, but he's going to continue to poke and prod from multiple different angles. Medevac does spot the Swarmos moving in from the north side, but easy prepared on the south side. Roaches and Ravagers finding a siege tank. The lone defense here. The Locust wave are enough to catch the Thors.
Couple of Thors going down. Valuable targets there. 3 Thors going to go down on that side. And as we said, the Corrosive Bile very good at zoning out these Thors. Oh, that orbital's very low. The Corrosive Bile's not quite able to take it out. The repair is good,
save.
But it's only a couple of Thors in a tank left over. A Hellion drop trying to put the pressure back on Reynor, trying desperately to pull his attention away, but it feels like Reynor is managing to swat down these pressures, and at the same time micro the Swarmos on the offensive.
Time is doing his absolute best to try and put on some kind of counteroffensive, but Reynor is just prepared at every single angle, every single turn. The Liberator is getting shut down. You kill off 9 workers, that's okay. I've got a 5K mineral bank and 2K gas. I can make 10 workers at a time. I've got Locust going after your planetary, which I don't know if that repair is going to be fast enough.
Oh, the mass repair is there, but it's not enough. There we go, the 4th base falls. The 5th base still hovering uselessly above a single Roach. It pulls back to try and retake the 4th base, but pure Thor Viking is not going to get the job done against Roach Ravager. Even Tunneling Claw Roaches starting to work their way in towards Time's base.
Ooh, just setting up for a potential attack later on. He moves his way over toward the natural, knowing that he can actually just unburrow, pull a few units back, and then go in over toward that other base. And remember, that's going to be an orbital command, so not even a planetary fortress. It's even harder to keep alive.
Reynor's in his element now. He's in control of this game, and it's going to be a relatively smooth finish from here. Time has been pushed into a corner. There's not a lot of good choices for the Blue Terran player here. He's just out of position. unable to cover all of his bases with his limited number of units. And these Locusts have just been gaining immense value over the past 5 or 6 minutes, and they continue to do so. SCVs, sensor towers, depots, everything falling to the endless onslaught of Locusts. It's going to be one last desperate push onto the map. Time knows if he doesn't gain position, those Locusts are going to chip away at him. But this is exactly what the Ravagers want.
Yeah, these Thors have no capabilities of dodging out of Corrosive Bile. He's doing his absolute damnedest. He's doing his best, but it is most certainly not enough, and he cannot replace this army. He's barely mining 5 minerals a second.
Yeah, Reynor here with some beautiful play throughout this game. It's one of the toughest maps here, and he did struggle against the early aggression times. Openings were fantastic, but Reynor, once he hit his stride in the mid-game, he has shown how to play against mech with Roach Swarmhost. An absolute clinic in the late game from Reynor to take the 2-0 lead.
And taking it, as you said, Pig, on his opponent's map choice. One of the maps that we were starting off this game saying, it's Fracture. This is a tough map for those Zerg players, especially of Reynor's style, but he still made it work. He still found damage with the counterattack. He still made his game go in his way, go in his favor, and now he's up 2-0, 1 game away from the Grand Finals, 1 game away from facing Serral.
Yeah, the next map is going to be Blue Shift as well. It was his map choice, so despite being a smaller map, Reynor clearly comfortable on that one. It was, of course, the map some of you might remember. He managed to overwhelm Maru's push on that map in the GSL in a crushing fashion. It was a very decisive, straight-up win. So he clearly looks comfortable in the macro game on Blue Shift, and that will be our next map. The pressure is now on for Time to turn things around. He's going to need to win 3 games in a row, Fear Dragon.
Oh, that's a hard ask in this situation, Pig. I don't even know what you do. Do you start trying to go for some of the cheeses? I feel like we've been seeing some of the early pools still coming out from Reynor, even in this series, not just the series versus Euthermal. So that might be a hard ask to try and make that work. What would you like to see out of Time?
It's really tough, isn't it? You know, there's been some unorthodox pressure openings out of Time, and I like that. In game 1, it was, of course, the Hellion Cyclone with the Liberator paired up with it. I thought that was a very nice sort of surprising pressure where you force a large reaction. In the second game there as well, we saw some unorthodox aggression, and I don't think Time was in a bad position off either of these, but what has been the one thing we always talk about with Reynor, it's the Zergling run-bys. They're what brings him back when he's behind. They're what allows him to finish off games when he's ahead. You need to come up with some sort of system as a player to make doubly sure your wall is raised, to make doubly sure you're clearing up this vision on the map and spotting these link counterattacks coming. You can't let him get into your work alliance with those Zerglings.
I'm really wondering if just going more into that mech composition once again, and maybe just leaving 2 or so Hellbats, 3 Hellbats back at home or at these different locations. It's a low supply investment, it's just a mineral investment to try and help deal with a lot of these link run-bys. He's just got to find some kind of answer, or he's just going to start playing perfectly.
It's one or the other here. There is no more room for error for this player. Down here in the bottom left-hand side of the map, hailing from China in the blue. Give it up for Time.
And up here in the top right-hand corner of the map, hailing from Italy, he is known as the Spaghetti Boy. It is Reynor.
Little Boy, Spaghetti Boy, all these silly nicknames. I feel like he's got to get some more badass names after this tournament run. He really is deserving of it. You know, he's such a beast of a player. One of the scariest people to play against on the ladder. And once again, going to be opting for that spawning pool first opening here on Blue Shift. The Zerglings do get across the map very quickly here. We even saw in Zerg vs Protoss on this map, he enjoyed a couple of Zerglings doing a bit of a run-by versus Neeb to seal that series.
I mean, maybe the reason why we call him Spaghetti Boy is because his noodly appendages just seem to wither their way into every single nook and cranny, being able to find every single lowered supply depot, every single open wall. He's so good at it, Pig. It's crazy.
That's a great mental image there. You know, he really is unlike any other player that we've seen in a long time when it comes to the ability to just counterattack and backstab and find his way in there. And once again, just mixing up the openings makes me very happy to see that. I think it's scary to early proxy racks against Reynor, because he's very much willing to go for these fast 6 Zerglings. He loves this opening. Now, he is actually going to go through the center of the map, and he's going to try and hide them to the side. I wonder if time checks for this. Let's look. Was this Reaper going to go to the side? And is it going to look for those Zerglings?
No, he saw. If he was paying attention, he would have known there were some Lings, but he didn't quite catch wind of it. And now the Lings are going to be able to get over here. He handled this masterfully in game number 1. Didn't lose nearly anything. In fact, he didn't actually lose anything.
No SCVs that time. Let's see if he can repeat it. It's a tough ask. It's only 1 Marine dealing range damage. Let's see. Good micro. Notice how he's pulling the SCVs to body block for that Marine, but this is denying a lot of time being built on that command center. This time around, Reynor is getting a little bit more damage. It is going to get 1 SCV. Not a bad run of things there for Reynor, buying a bit more distraction time as well.
I think that was definitely more successful for Reynor than the first game. Like you said, a lot of that lost mine time, I think he definitely got a lot more lost mining time there from his opponent. Time probably going to be a little bit annoyed about that, already being down 0-2. These small little losses in the early game really do start to make you feel like, it's going to be another one of those games again. I got to figure out a way to turn this around.
I like the late Ling speed from Reynor here as well. He says, look, I've got a bit of economy to get those early 6 Zerglings. I don't need my Ling speed as fast because I'm going to slow my opponent down as long as I get the 3rd hatch before the Reaper gets back across the map. So his Ling speed's not massive. It's actually about 1.5 minutes later than normally would be. So there is a window where 4 Hellions could dive in and be a bit of a threat. But with good micro, slow Zerglings can definitely deter that.
Okay, Chris Pratt is getting pushed out again, though, so that is going to be one helpful way to try and deter some of these Hellions, but Creep already getting denied once. Reynor immediately cancels that Creep tumor, though, and respreads it a little bit further out once again with the safety of those Queens. 1 single Marine going to be taken out. That Overlord, which sees a tech lab and a starport, may think that it's a Banshee, but
the
here
run
we
by
go.
we were talking about, Ling speed is so far away. The Evo chambers do not get down. These drones are in Barbecue Town now, but actually the Zerglings get the wraparound. And 2 of the Hellions are shut down. And this 1 Hellion on its own going to struggle to take anything out. It's damaging the drones, but it's unable to finish them. A perfect defense from Reynor in a tough situation. 4 Hellions and a Reaper for 2 drones, that's nothing.
It seemed really, really bad for him for more than just a few seconds there, but Reynor still makes the best out of a bad situation. Raven gonna be following this up here for time, so he's not gonna be going for that Banshee. I really wonder when Reynor is actually going to acknowledge that, or I guess recognize and see that 10 Lings being made, and he already sees that 3rd command center being made at the front.
Roach Warren is going to be the tech choice this time around. I think that's a good choice on this map. These big Roach pushes, very frightening when you can get across the map as quickly as you can here. Zergling's ready to counterattack, as you pointed out. These Hellions, though, yeah.
And it's times like, I dare you, I double dare you.
That's it, right? You kind of float out there, you say, yeah, I'm totally harassing, but you can't just commit to it the way you've been doing in the previous games, because Reynor's so quick to backstab. And it is going to be a double Raven harassment to start off this opening. Something we don't see a lot of anymore. Of course, those Ravens can then rotate back into the main army, be used to clear up creep. Going to save you a lot of minerals in the long term.
Okay, there finally we end up seeing the double engineering base being thrown down for
no
time.
drone pull.
Auto turrets, getting some good kills. Some good focus fire originally with 4 worker kills total. The Raven also going to be able to get out of there alive and get some pretty good scouting information as well.
Yeah, Ravager's Zergling pressure is ready. Oh man, that Raven actually going down is disastrous for time. And whenever you go for Ravens, they're a great harassment unit. They're a great utility unit in the long term. But you know what, Fear Dragon? They're not too good at fighting, especially when they're on the other side of the map. The Roaches and Ravagers crushing through the wall. All there is standing in their way is a few unupgraded Marines and Hellions. I think this might be the end for time. He's got to fight as hard as he can, but the SCV's unable to hold the ramp. The depot's lowered. And Reynor crushes it 3-0.
Reynor gonna be moving on to the grand finals. A big smile on his face, a cheer from the crowd, and he knows he's earned his spot amongst the legends, and he's gonna get a chance to face one of those legends in just a little bit.
The smile says it all there. That was a win to be proud of. So decisive And there on that short rush distance map in the end, recognizing, of course, that his opponent was getting a little bit fancy with the Raven harassment, launches an assault across the map and closes it out. A very decisive series, especially that game 2 comeback. An impressive range of strategy.
Oh my God.
What skill from this young 16-year-old.
That fracture game, and it's not even just about being able to defeat Time, it's about being able to defeat Euthermal and the games that he had to play versus each one of them. So amazing, so diverse in the kind of, I guess, plays that he had to face off against with the proxy racks, with the different forms of aggression, the continued Zergling harassment. This guy is gonna go far.
He absolutely will. He is showing impressive play, and we're going to hear from him down on the stage with Smix.
Thank you very much, Pick. Congratulations, Reynor. Not only is this your first time in the grand finals ever, this is your first time to do so in front of this amazing audience. How does that feel?
It feels amazing, and also the crowd is amazing, as I already said. So it feels like 10 times better with this crowd. So.
It has been so amazing here in Montreal, and the games have been fantastic too. This series you just showed us was really clear-cut, 3-0 from you. I talked to you before earlier today, and you said you weren't sure how it was going to go, as he's not a European Terran. So how would you compare him stylistically?
I didn't really know what was happening in game 2. Like first the mine drop, and then the Banshees, and then the tanks. I was a bit confused. And then I saw it was mech, so I was worried. And then he killed my third base, and I was pretty bad situation. But yeah, it was mech, so I'm quite confident versus mech, so just worked out.
Pretty bad situation, but you were still able to pull out a win and make it a 3-0. And now you're going to be facing the final boss, Serral. Serral has been the only player to consistently be the one to stop you in the WCS. Valencia, your first WCS event, he's the one that knocked you out in the round of 8, and now you get to meet him once again, but this time in the grand finals. So what do you think?
To be honest, I was happy that Serral won, so I I really want to stop him, and I will do my best. So please cheer for me.
Love that answer. We'll see how that match goes, as that is coming up right after this. Nathanius, back to you.
Thank you very much, voice of WCS. Reynor taking a dominating victory here to move on to the grand finals. What an astonishing story this young man has had in this WCS in this year. It's just been astounding.
It's fantastic to watch. He's such a lovable player, right? And he's gonna have the opportunity to beat Serral, but that is such a tall order. But he seems so up for it. Reynor is great.
Loved it, Nate. I mean, I said before that I really felt stylistically this was a bad matchup for Time. I do want to give Time all the props though, because what a run, and it's so freaking cool to see a Chinese player make it to the semifinals. I really hope that Time does not slow down and that he keep practicing, because if he keeps his practice up, this Time could really do great things in 2019. But I think right now Reynor is just a little bit better, and I think you could see that, especially in game 2, the position that he was in, but just overall, I mean, you gotta love the way that Reynor plays, and I'm very, very excited for this grand finals.
His counterattacks were absolutely insane, and that, ladies and gentlemen, sets us up for a grand finals, doesn't it? We only have 2 players left. We've got Serral and Reynor. It is going to be one hell of a finish to the 2018 WCS circuit.
And of course, after that grand final, we will know which 8 players will represent the WCS circuit at the global finals as well. 7 of them are confirmed. Nurcho celebrated earlier when Lambo lost, because that obviously meant that Nurcho is now guaranteed to go to BlizzCon as well. Lambo is currently qualified, but we all know how it goes. If Reynor wins the grand final, then Reynor will take that spot away from Lambo.
But is he really going to be able to do that? That is such a... It's like the sheer force of will that Serral has to win WCS.
We've got In Control crunching the numbers as we speak, ladies and gentlemen. We have that grand final coming up, but don't forget, we'll also be showing you some interesting changes perhaps coming to this wonderful game that we call StarCraft 2. That'll be coming up before our grand final, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.